This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Friday, November the 14th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, he's produced the Come On With An edition. So, if you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So the wind and the rain and the forecast continues. Gets a bit much, right? And so I know a lot of people are clamoring to get their snow tires on and your winter tires on. I was probably a little late to come to the game, but I made a call yesterday to get my tire swapped and get a service December 10th. So pretty long wait to get that bit of action taken care of. Anyway, let's go. All right. Promise kind of put a bow on the Major League season. So the MVP votes are in and the MVPs have been announced. In the American League, it's Aaron Judge, of course, the New York Yankees, and in the National League, Shohei Ohtani. No surprise with either, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. But you look at the list of all the four major North American sports. The list of players who have won the MVP in the first two seasons and also won back-to-back championships. The list is Shohei Ohtani. That's it. Only player to ever have done that in the four major North American sports. Yeah, so the Habs flying until last night. Here comes Dallas and absolutely whipped them on home ice, 7-0. Habs gave up 7 goals on like 24 shots. The worst part of the game, beyond the scoreboard, no hook. Nasty play, nasty spill into the boards. If you screenshot the way his leg twisted when it hit the boards, it looked pretty serious. I hope it's not. I guess we'll find out more today. But Alex Noak off to a great start and now hurt. All right, I hear Rick Westhead. He's a TSN reporter. He's done lots of important work looking at some really serious issues regarding, in particular, hockey, the dark side of hockey culture. He was the person who brought the story out about Hockey Canada slush fund covering up allegations of sexual assault. Then, of course, the 2018 World Juniors, that's been through the courts. All 5 who were accused were acquitted. But he's got a new book out talking about the dark side of hockey. And now, look, no question there is one. But it does pain me when hockey gets isolated as the sport that has this dark side, when of course we know it's simply not true. All major sports, especially at the elite levels, have some very dark components. All right, we talk about the way that minor hockey associations or minor sports associations should be handling it, then provincial bodies, and then the national bodies. What strikes me that's missing here is that you need some player-led conversations here. Because for young players, young people, just being told what to do, what to say, what to think by adults sometimes is in one ear, out the other. For instance, if you had someone who's playing at the AAA level in midget or playing junior, and they're well known to be good kids with the right ideals and the right motivation for sport, if they were the mentors for the younger players, to make a trip into the dressing rooms for the growing players, to talk about, what hockey culture should be. And, to not hide away the fact that there have been some very bad things happen, maybe that would have more of an impact. Same thing when I think about schools and violence and bullying, what have you. There was a great example in the northeastern United States. I can't remember which state or what school, but it was high school. And so it doesn't need to be the best athlete. It could be just the top performer in academically speaking, or a public speaker, or a debater, or whatever. And in this case, it was the high school quarterback. And so what they did to try to stem the bullying that's going on in school, they would identify those who are on the receiving end, the victims of bullies, the victims of violence. They would go to social media and say, hey, Marie in grade 11, Miss Jones's class? She's incredible at math. She's been really helpful to me. Hey, do you know Brian in grade 12, Mr. Williams' class? Yeah, he's incredible on the piano. You should check him out. What happened? The bullying almost virtually stopped in its tracks. So the leading youth is something that kind of gets lost on us. We talk about, the top down. The adults, and of course the adults have to be the adults in the room, but using some of the top quality youth as being the poster children for good behavior, working hard in school, working hard in sports, and the positive outcomes therein, I don't know, maybe that's kind of lost on us. But anyway, let's go. All right, Dial a Carol. The beginning of the Christmas season for many. We do know people take the opportunity to tune into Dial a Carol, make a donation. And it's tomorrow. We'll be in the mall from 1 to 6. I think myself and Brian O'Connell are kicking it off at 1 o'clock, so please do indeed join us. All right, so we'll find out today from Justice Alphonsus Fowler about whether or not he will accept applications for 3 recounts in 3 different voting districts, of course, Placentia West Bellevue, Topsail Paradise, Lewisport, Twillingate. They fall outside the margin of 10 votes between winner and runner-up to trigger an automatic recount, but none is close. So it's 18, 64, and 102. They're the vote disparities. What is completely bizarre, though, to me, is one of the witnesses that's come forward is an observer. And they witness what they call irregularities. And we have to make sure we deal with these things. The problem here is that the irregularities that were witnessed weren't in any of the 3 aforementioned districts. So we're being asked to infer that if you saw something going sideways in Lake Melville, then it must have happened as well in Placentia West Bellevue. So I guess we'll hear from Fowler today. And once this is concluded, if there are recounts accepted, it might be the end of the month before we even see the House reopen to conduct the people's business. But I guess we'll all find out today. On that front, I've never been in government, so I don't know exactly how transitioning from one party to another works. But when Premier Wakeham yesterday went to social media talking about the fact that there was a cabinet document regarding the independent panel looking at the Upper Churchill MOU, when it was deemed a cabinet document, it wasn't automatically transferred or transitioned into the new government. How can that be? So it's been taken care of. He wrote a letter to Premier Fury, former Premier Fury, and so this has been dealt with. But it does beg the question about who's sitting on what information that absolutely belongs in the hands of the new incoming government versus having to take 2 letter writing campaigns to ensure all the information you need to understand exactly what's going on, to actually conduct business, craft policy, and govern. I don't know, man. It shouldn't be that way, but anyway, it is. And, of course, Premier Wakeham went on to say that those reports from the independent panel would help form the terms of reference or the mandate for whatever pending independent review is in the offing. And you know what? I'd like to ask some other things. I know it takes time to get things done. Government moves at a snail's pace. But where are we on things like personal care homes and long-term care homes and the Auditor General's reports? They were glaring insofar as some shortcomings and some absolutely non-compliance issues. So I get it. It's going to take them a while to get their feet firmly entrenched, but let's get at it. Also wonder what the new government stance is on adopting national pharmacare. Even when we just look at the world of diabetes, we have an unbelievable prevalence of diabetes in this province. Between type 1, type 2, and juvenile, about 18% of the population has diabetes. And that's only for people who've had the formal diagnosis. So where are we on that? And so in addition to diabetes-related medicines and treatments and supplies, and then it's, of course, contraceptives. Interestingly, on the world of insulin, it was on this date in 1921, 104 years ago, Frederick Banting and Charles Best delivered their first paper on the results of the research they were doing at the University of Toronto. And on we go, and we know now all of a sudden it's called insulin. What's also interesting about that is that we do know that big pharma and patents and the billions of dollars and the influences they have on government are very, very real. Banting and Best, who went on to win a Nobel Prize, they sold the patent for insulin to the University of Toronto for $1. That's it. Man, how the world has changed. Anyway, let's keep going. So, some very troubling things going on in the courts, always will be, and that's brutal. But to watch the ongoings of the Tony Humby case and the Marcus Hicks sentencing is heartbreaking stuff. I mean, the Humby trial was interrupted yesterday when one of the victims, alleged victims, I suppose I'm supposed to say, just couldn't handle it anymore. Had a panic attack and had to walk out of the room where he was testifying via video. And then you see some of the folks who were the victims of this creep, this evil monster, Marcus Hicks, testifying about the victim impact statements and what it's meant to their life, and the fact that they've lost all trust and they feel not only ashamed and embarrassed but victimized. Man, these stories are just so common. And then we get Connie Pike calls in from Miles for Smiles. Talk about the court docket regarding child abuse. I don't know what has to change here, but those particular stories are unbelievable. All right, let's get to the water. The FFAW were right. 3PS cod stock assessment remains in the critical zone. All right. significant loss of the offshore components. So for years and years and years, the FFAW was warning about this. They're talking about draggers fishing in very vulnerable winter aggregations and spawning fish. So recovery is going to have to go back to the table. Pretty much, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but DFO pretty much admits they were wrong. Here's one of the quotes coming from one of their scientists. It's important to remember that there was a major revision to our understanding of the stock. Yeah, but whose responsibility is that? We can't fix the past, but we can take responsibility for how we manage the future. This means revisiting the rebuilding plan. It means more listening to the people on the water, and it means tracking and, importantly, reviewing changes in the distribution of fish and fleets within a stock area. We can't fix the past, but boy, oh boy, even if you're not intimately involved in the fishery, knowing that the offshore draggers are operating in the winter aggregations and in the spawning fish grounds just never made sense. And you do not have to be someone working actively in the fishery, whether it be on the science side or the harvesting side or the processing side, to have thought that anyway. A couple of more, maybe a few more in the water. So remember the big story during last year's snow crab season when then Minister Jerry Byrne was talking about Quinlan Brothers, and the allegation was that they were processing and selling dead crab. So it was a problem. They went in and seized about $500,000 worth of product and destroyed it. It's made its way to the courts only to see the charges dropped. The Crown presented zero evidence. Oh boy. So it's a reputational knock for Quinlan Brothers, and no question, Robin Quinlan and others working for that particular company are, I'm not going to put words in their mouth either, but I'm sure they're furious. So, of course, they're going to deal with the new fisheries minister about recovering the loss of $500,000 worth of crab. But on the reputational front, which was mentioned specifically by Robin Quinlan, you can only imagine here comes the lawsuits. And I don't blame them. So if the allegations were what they were and the product was seized, but no further examination, no protection of evidence, no documentation to follow through, so which is it? Was the product bad or not? Because if the Crown presents zero evidence, you have to believe that the Quinlan brothers were taking a knock. Now, people will have their own position or opinion on the operations of any big processor, from Royal Greenland through the Quinlans or the Dailies or anybody else. But in this very specific case, charges fully dropped. Your thoughts? Couple more quick ones. Also wonder where the new fisheries minister is on, and we've heard Loyola Driscoll talk about the St. Mary's fish plant burning to the ground, destroyed by fire. It's not just about the job losses there and the investment dollars lost in St. Mary's, and it's a devastating blow to the community and surrounding areas. But it's also the concept of processing capacity. Like before the plant burnt to the ground, there were plenty of concerns being voiced by inshore harvesters about processing capacity. Things like, here we are at nearing the ends of the snow crab season, and processors are up to their neck, including out in St. Mary's, where they process some 7 million pounds of snow crab, and then here comes cod season, but no opportunity to sell the cod because the processors were still working on the crab. So losing that particular plant further complicates it. So I know we're not going to see any meaningful action for the next snow crab season necessarily. Certainly the rebuild in St. Mary's can't happen overnight. But where are we on expanding processing capacity? Because if it was a problem already, then it's only getting worse because of that particular plant being lost. And of course, with the news of the Baltic 3 out in Cedar Cove near Lark Harbour, it's been buffered and battered, and now the cracks are getting worse. So we know nothing can be done until the summer or the spring to see the removal, whether it be the refloat or however they're going to get that ship out of there. But I don't know how much fuel might be left on board, but we do know if it continues to damage and further battering and buffering leads to more and more damage, more and more debris, maybe some fuel that will show up in the form of tar globs or whatever on the shoreline. Again, the FFAW voicing their concerns, and obviously so. All right, a couple of quickies here. So yesterday, we heard from the Prime Minister out in Terrace, BC, about the next wave of 7 new major projects to be fast-tracked under the Major Projects Office. All right, we're not on the list, but things of concern for this province are on the list. Hydro in Iqaluit, transmission project in BC. We wonder where any of our major projects might be on that list. But it's also important to note that some of the projects that were announced in the first wave and now in the second wave of projects are not new. some of these have been approved for a long time, like the Sisson mine, critical minerals in New Brunswick. That's been on the table for quite a long time. So you wonder what the parameters are to get on this coveted list. So some of this, some of this brand new. Iqaluit Hydro, Nouveau Monde Graphite Phase, that's phase number 2 in Quebec, the Northwest Critical Conservation Corridor, and yes, some of the other operations, expansion of the Port of Montreal, what have you. But some of this is regurgitated. Even when we talk liquefied natural gas phase 2 in Kitimat, that's been approved for a long time, quite a long time. And just quick reference to what is obviously going to be one of the concerns voiced by some is the question of, where's the pipeline? Okay, it's a good question, but I think the better question is, what pipeline? There's no proposed pipeline. So when we're talking about shovel-ready projects, then obviously some of these are regurgitated and re-announced, but many of these have gone through preparations to be so-called shovel-ready. Pipeline? There is no pipeline proposal. None. So I don't know how we can put something on a list that is just mythical at this moment in time, but it gets lots of questions and concerns. Stick with Alberta, and we'll add Quebec to this particular conversation. News conference held yesterday by the Canadian Security Intelligence Service ceases. Look, as much as the United States has turned into a problem for the country, there's no question bigger problems on the horizon are currently in play, China and Russia and foreign interference. We had a Justice Marie-Josée Hogue commission inquiry regarding foreign interference into elections. The same concerns are now being voiced about foreign interference into potential separation referendums. It's going to happen in Quebec again for the third time. When the Parti Québécois are going to be successful, and they are, because the coalition d'Avenir under Legault, they're going to get pummeled. They're going to get smoked. So that leader of the Parti Québécois, Pierre Plamondon, he said for sure if they win, here comes another referendum. So there's a concern there. Alberta looks like they're going to have one sometime into the future, both of which are foolhardy in my personal opinion. But foreign interference doesn't necessarily mean that the numbers of ballots cast in one side or the other is changing. It's the information that is used and abused to try to interfere, especially in G7 countries. So their goal might be to influence one party or another to be successful, one yes or no vote to be successful, but it's the upheaval. It's the chaos and the crisis that they covet. Because when a country is in chaos or crisis, of course, focusing on the prizes, getting people's business attended to, as opposed to putting out fires, is exactly what the Chinese and the Russians and the North Koreans and the Iranians, and yes, the Americans, is what they try to pull off, but we've got to keep our eye on that. The news conference also included comments about the radicalization of youth online. And we know it to be true. It's not hyperbolic. There's been teenagers in this country charged with, alleging to try to have plots, whether it be attacks on the Jewish community or immigrant community or any segment of society. So, again, I'll give you a break with my artificial intelligence concerns today, but that news conference from CSIS yesterday, eye-opening to say the least. Oh, and just one more very quick. I hear a ton about crossing the floor. When a member of Parliament or a member of the House of Assembly cross the floor, should that trigger a by-election? I don't know. Sure, why not? But it's the fake outrage on this particular floor crossing of Chris d'Entremont. Look, people might feel betrayed. I get it. But we're pretending like this is a one-off. This is some sort of rare occurrence. It's not. In the history of the country, under the Westminster parliamentary system, there's been over 304 crossings. But let's look in more current times. In the past 25 years, 80 members of Parliament have crossed the floor. So how all of a sudden this is drawing the outrage that it has is unbelievable. More Liberals have crossed the Conservatives than the other way around, but all of a sudden this d'Entremont story is apparently something that nobody's ever heard of. Whether or not it's healthy for democracy, I'll leave it up to you. Whether or not it should trigger a by-election, fair ball. But pretending that all of a sudden this is something that we've never seen the like is just simply not the case. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. Let's have a great show to wrap up the week. That means you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1 and say good morning to Brenda Kitchen with Protect the NL. And good morning, Brenda. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Patty. Thanks so much for having me. There's so much going on the island. I think you're doing a great job bringing attention to all these really important things. And I guess I just wanted to touch base and let you know where we were with the trial and where some of these wind energy to hydrogen mega projects are.
Sure, and for the listeners' benefit, Brenda and two other women are on trial for what they were arrested when protesting on Confederation Building Hill in the parking lot there in the boat, and this was all about protesting wind energy projects or proposals here in the province. Just so people know what we're talking about. Go ahead, Brenda, what's the update?
Yes, thank you so much. I mean, it's been over a year now dealing with these charges. We had our trial there in October, and the first day of trial, 7 of the charges were dropped immediately. So we saw that as a very good sign, and the trial itself we felt went really well, and we feel confident that the remaining 2 charges will be dropped. And those 2 charges are unauthorized use of government property. That's the provincial legislation that the government has in place. And on January 14th is going to be closing arguments. We're not sure if the judge will have a decision that day, but January 14th will be the next time that we are due in court. And, you know, it was all about transparency and accountability when it comes to these wind energy, hydrogen mega projects that are being proposed. We were asking primarily the Liberal government, because they appear to be the ones pushing these projects forward. We've been asking them questions for, over 3 years now. And we have to question, you know, these arrests are really about continuing to quiet the people and push the projects forward. And, you know, would the arrest even have happened if the PCs were in power? I don't know. But we really welcome a fresh start with the new PC government. We believe that change can happen for the better if there's dialogue. And Protect NL, we're continuing to stick to the facts about these projects, and they are still very active and moving forward. I'm happy to say that our team is growing, so we are reaching more and more Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. Like, we have over 7,000 people now in our Protect NL group. We encourage people to go and find that on Facebook and get involved with the discussion. People still don't realize that these projects are all connected with creating hydrogen, which requires massive amounts of our freshwater resources. So again, like, we're looking forward to a fresh start with the new government. We like that they're looking at the facts, like the MOU at Churchill Falls. And we feel that they're going to want to demonstrate early competency and avoid inherited scandals or any bad decisions that were made. So we're going to continue to let people know about the projects and the excessive water demands that we're seeing, especially with all the droughts that we experienced this summer. You know, people's attention are there, and they are very concerned. But I'll just talk about World Energy GH2. They're the company that has the green light from government, and the amount of water that they want. Now, you've heard me say time and time again, World Energy GH2, their behavior is deeply deceptive. They continue to mislead the public time and time again. And, you know, a few years ago when they first came on the scene, they claimed that they wanted 2.3 million liters of our water at their peak performance, which would be equivalent to 22 Olympic-sized swimming pools. And now we're going back and we're trying to find information because now everything I'm pushing out, we're going to be making sure we have the references there, the research studies, no more fooling around. It's 3 years and these companies are still moving forward. So now we can only find information to support that they want less than 1 million liters, which would be equivalent to 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools. They continue to massage their data and their numbers. Like, it's really hard to get straight answers from them. And remember, you know, you're chatting about the data centers. So I go on their website yesterday to, you know, because, again, it's always changing, and they make a point to bring up the data centers on their website now, and they're discussing how the government of Canada has committed $700 million for data centers. So, like, you know, you don't know what the company is up to, what direction they're going in, and data centers, oh, what a rabbit hole to go down. They can use up to 19 to 20 million liters of fresh water every single day. So, like, we're just looking at the water demands and how excessive they are. You know, the impact zones that experienced a moderate to severe drought this past summer. I mean, these are some of the impact zones of where these projects want to set up, right?
Yeah, a couple of quick points here. So World Energy, for starters, if they're now talking about Plan B being artificial intelligence data centers, my understanding is any approval that's been granted in the past or releases from environmental assessment are purpose-driven, and it's only for wind energy, green hydrogen, ammonia export. Data centers, right back to the drawing board, because I think there's a much different financial impact. The environmental impact very much would be similar, but the economic impact vastly different, number one. The reservoir that World Energy is talking about is an abandoned industrial reservoir, which they can't use all the water that's in it anyway. And it's not a drinking water reservoir, which is just a fact. Not that it's pushing back against your point. But my question for you, Brenda, is what gives you any reason to believe that the current PC government is opposed to these wind projects? Because they've never come out and said it.
No, I don't feel that they're currently opposed to the projects. I don't. But I'm looking at their behavior, and I'm looking that they're pushing for the facts on the Churchill Falls MOU, and I'm hoping that they're going to want to avoid the incompetencies that we've seen by the Liberal government, and I'm hoping that that's what's going to inspire them to come to the table and speak with us and have that dialogue. But you're right, Patty, the PCs do have a platform statement, and I can send it to you, where they do support the wind to hydrogen mega projects. So, you know, we're more looking at their behavior, how horrible the Liberals are acting in the opposition role. They don't want to have anything to do with any of their bad decisions. That's what, you know, we watch the actions of people, not just their words, and we see that Tony, or Premier Wakeham, is pushing further on the MOU, and that's the sort of thing that gives us, you know, the confidence, I guess, that we're going to be able to speak to this new government. But you're right, they do support the wind to hydrogen mega projects. Yes.
Well, I mean, I don't know what level of full-throated support they do or don't have, but they've never, in my understanding, never come out and said we are opposed to, whether it be World Energy or Everwind or Everac or Pattern or any of the current proposals that are in play. Pattern's a bit different because phase one is not Crown land, so they can kind of proceed pretty much of their own accord. So, yeah, I don't know. Next time we have a chance to speak with the Premier, I've got a laundry list of stuff we need to talk about. And that's one of them. Yeah. And the Upper Churchill MOU concerns, you know, I know there's plenty of people opposed and there's plenty of people in favour of, but some of this is as much a political exercise as it is an examination of the economics of it all. This is what it feels like anyway.
Oh, well, well, that would be. I just, you know, we're just in a spin that we're still 3 years later, and we got to look at the actions, and we have to continue to push out the facts. And if it is just a political, say, maneuver, then again, you know, what these decisions are going to fall to the people to influence government and the outcomes. And people are getting more and more educated all the time. And with World Energy GH2, you know, I don't know how we can believe anything that they're saying, to be honest with you, because they've lied to us so many times, and they're massaging their numbers on their website. They say the water's coming from that reservoir, but their behavior has shown us that they lie all the time. So why would we trust them that is the reservoir that they're planning to take it from? This company, we are the kings and queens. We own the resources. We hold all the cards. We don't need to be jumping in bed with companies like World Energy GH2, who's continuing to mislead the public again and again. So, you know, if they're not going to do the wind energy to hydrogen mega projects, cancel the project, get off the Crown lands, let some people get some sleep. People are stressed out. I hear people, they're up all night. They're trying to research these projects. They're trying to reach hydrogen ammonia plants. People are really, really worried, and that has to stop. So if World Energy GH2 is going to give up on the wind energy to hydrogen mega project, cancel their project, get off the land, and if they want to go after something else, put their proposal in. And in the meantime, we have to continue to educate Newfoundlanders and Labradorians about the huge demand on our freshwater resources. And that's only one company. And currently there's I think there's 6 to 7 of these mega projects attempting to move forward. And, way back when we first started, we did 2 petitions, but the first one was asking government to do some sort of cumulative research on what does it mean to our province to have 6 or 7 of these mega projects operating at the same time, drawing on that water. And I know in Central, I do think it comes from one of their, highly prized reservoirs that feeds into the river, which automatically feeds into, and people from that area can call in and educate us more on that. It is hard to stay on top of all this stuff, but
it is.
It's all the projects together now and they are moving forward. I mean, ABO they're looking at putting turbines along the Avalon Isthmus area. Their turbines they're proposing are the tallest now for the province at 751 feet tall, and their deadline date for public feedback is December 16th. And I've asked questions just on every project that's been going through this EIS process with government. I've never received any answers at all. And, so do we ever get any answers? But all of these projects are continuing to move forward. And people still need to be very concerned. I keep hearing, they're dead in the water. There's not going to be any of these projects going ahead, but they are.
But there's no market. Until anybody signs a power purchase agreement, no one's going to build anything because it'll be building a bridge to nowhere, as they say. Now, will there be some agreement in the future? I have no idea, but currently, none. Even all the MOUs that have been signed across the pond, no action on those. They're simply pieces of paper. So I guess we'll all see. But, I mean, even World Energy has been quite clear. Unless they sign a minimum 10-year power purchase agreement, they are not going to proceed with one single investment dollar, which I'd like to know what's the status of the $127 million line of credit with the federal government as well, to be honest. Brenda, I got to get to the break, but I appreciate your time. Stay in touch.
Can I just say one quick thing about how much they're selling the water for?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, 0.0005 cents a liter, so 1 million liters will only cost these companies $500.
It's $500 per 1,000 cubic meters of water that's licensed and used, $50 per 1,000 cubic meters licensed and not used.
Back in 1999 when Roger Grimes was trying to sell the water in Gisborne Lake, they had a water resources protection plan. So, this is another huge concern that people really need to look at. But, Patty, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for talking about the hard issues here.
Appreciate your time, Brenda. Thank you.
Alrighty, bye.
Okay, bye-bye. And then there's tiered royalties based on cost recovery. It's 10% after one-time cost recovery, 20% after 2 times, 25% after 3 times cost recovery. So even if these things happen, the royalties don't flow until they've recovered their capital investment. Wild. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Oh, welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 3. Ben, you're on the air. Line number 3, Ben? Dave, is that pot up by chance? Hello, Ben. You're on the air. Ben, on hold. Line number 2. Dwayne, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Patty.
Morning to you.
I was talking with you back in June about my mother dying after being misdiagnosed at the Bjorn Hospital.
I recall the conversation.
Yeah, so anyway, I contacted a lawyer and I got back to them. But you want me to just quickly go through the case and what happened? Just anyone who didn't hear?
Sure.
So anyway, a similar thing had happened 3 years earlier when my mother was sick and she went up to Bjorn and they sent her home 3 o'clock that time in the morning and she didn't get any better for 3 days. She went back and that second time they kept her in and she got better after a few days and so yeah, a similar thing happened then, but I guess they didn't have no room back then either. So anyway, Mother's Day this year, my mother had been sick for a few weeks, and she went up to the Bjorn Hospital, and after waiting there in a wheelchair for 6 hours, they sent her home 12 o'clock that night, said they didn't have no room for her, and that she wasn't a top priority. It took her 6 hours for them to finally look at her in a wheelchair. So anyway, she spent the next 3 days in bed at home and went back on the following Wednesday to the Bjorn Hospital. And this time they said her kidneys were failing, and they rushed her to St. John's the next morning. And there they did the emergency surgery on her, and she pulled through it. So that was Thursday. So they kept her in St. John's for a week and sent her back to Bjorn the following Thursday. And I was up to see her that day, and she was doing good. She was talking like herself and all, and she even went to the washroom using her walker, which is the only time I saw her out of bed, actually, for the week she was up there. So that was Thursday. So the next day, Friday, I was up there, and this doctor came into her room. She said he was here for a week from Russia. And he came to her room and said she had pneumonia, and he was putting her on this medication for the pneumonia, and that she would get to go home in a week, possibly even 4 or 5 days. So great, I'm thinking. So that was a Friday, and from there it was all downhill. By the next Thursday, she was on oxygen up there. She could hardly talk. And the next day, Friday, they took her back into St. John's, and she died a couple of days later on a Sunday. So anyway, the doctor in there said, what happened to her rate? She was going better when we sent her right there to Bjorn. What happened? So all I could say was, this Russian doctor came into her room that day, told her she had pneumonia and put her on this medication, and said she could go home in a week, and said she went back into St. John's in a week. So anyway, the doctor in there said that it appears she didn't have pneumonia at all, so she had been misdiagnosed, and that the medication he put her on up there in Bjorn further weakened her kidneys and led to her dying. So anyway, I decided to contact the lawyer, Marystown first, and he said it could take 5 or 10 years to go through the legal system, and that he was a bit old at the time, and so he wasn't taking on. But he said I could contact one of the bigger law firms in St. John's, which I did, and sent in my mom's medical records of the whole time she was in the hospital, the medication they gave her and all that. And so after getting I thought it was a runaround for a few weeks, the lawyer said that the doctors in this province pretty much all stick together and cover for each other, and that I would need the medical opinion of a doctor from another province, which could cost up to $5,000, and it would still be hard to prove, so that they weren't going to take the case on. I even suggested they could keep all the money, if they won, whatever money they got, they could keep, but she said that they could legally only take 30% or something. So anyway, they weren't going to take on the case, and so basically it's just a warning to others that this could happen to you, and be careful when you're going to the hospital. I don't know.
Medical malpractice is an extremely tricky piece of legal business. I know that to be true. And unfortunately, I know a little bit too much about it, given the fact that we've kind of dealt with it. Again, I'll reiterate my condolences to you and your family. It's just a dreadful story. We've had a misdiagnosis in our family, which led to eventually a death. So I get it. I was going to talk about another personal story on that front, but it's neither here nor there. It's a fair warning, and people really have to be diligent in dealing with any facet of life, and certainly that includes the healthcare sector, no doubt about it. And I'm not sure what else to say, because it's just all too sad, boy, to be honest. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, not really. Like I said, just a warning to others to, this is Christmas coming on now, and my mother's been there my whole life, right? And this year she won't be because they didn't take her in soon enough, so they didn't have room for her, and then misdiagnosed her. Yeah, it's just, I don't know.
I'm really sorry. You hang in there, Dwayne. You're always welcome on the program.
All right, thanks, Patty.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Okay, so I guess it is time for a break. When we come back, some good news. How about that? Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let us go. Line number 4 to say good morning to the CEO at Avalon Employment. That's Sean Wiltshire. Sean, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Great today. Thank you. How about you?
Good, thank you. I'm delighted to have an opportunity to have a chat about some great news for our province.
Absolutely. Let me set the stage going back last year in the monies that were lost. So in the Labour Market Development Agreement, the federal government cut, I think it was $625 million from it. The impact in this province was a loss of around $16.5–17 million for organisations like yours to try to help people with disabilities or autism find employment. So just to set the stage, now on to the good news.
Right, so I'm happy to announce that over the last number of months, with working with the federal government from Employment Development, Social Development Canada, and ACOA, which is an interesting department, we've been able to secure over $5 million to advance the autism employment program that we started here in Newfoundland and Labrador to Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and 4 locations here in Newfoundland and Labrador. I think that anybody who works in community or anybody who works in organizations can understand what a large commitment this is to the folks in the provinces in Atlantic Canada, and what a great honor it is to have a program that we developed here in Newfoundland and Labrador go beyond our borders. And I think that this was something that really made the program sort of attractive to government. They weren't recreating everything. They were taking a program that had been able to, during the pandemic, Patty, we helped 202 people across Newfoundland and Labrador, who were on income support or other programs, leave those programs and go to work. Those savings to government, those savings to the community, filling some of those labor markets. I know we have challenges across the province that, yes, there is higher unemployment in other areas, but in some parts of the province we're struggling to find folks, and these are the folks we're looking for. This program is designed for folks who are living on the autism spectrum, who may have gone to university and gotten a degree but have not been able to get a job, and their degree is going to waste, their skills are going to waste, and we need those in the labor market. A prime example is one of the folks we helped. He was somebody who did a finance degree and wasn't able to hold a job, Patty. His work quality was good, but people couldn't always interact with him because he didn't get the social signals. He was on unemployment, then he went on income support for 3 years, welfare, and he had so many skills. And through this program, he now works for the federal government in an auditor's position at Revenue Canada, making over $60,000 a year. Those are just some of the stories that we're going to be able to tell. We're required, part of our process and throughout these 4 provinces in Atlantic Canada, where our goal is to help 700 people find employment and help 300 employers become, aware of how they could hire somebody with autism. If we just meet 400 people, we'll save the 4 governments a collective $16 million. And the program only costs $5 million for 2 years for 4 provinces, and we're going to hopefully be able to save $16 million. This is something that we start to need to understand, that investments in helping people get a job, I'm just not helping somebody get a job. I'm actually creating a taxpayer. And that's what our government wants. That's what any government wants, is people working, spending money, and in the community paying taxes.
Absolutely.
And that's what this program's about.
Yeah, good for you and for everyone who's the driving forces behind it. This is something that you already know, but we can talk about getting a job, expanding the tax base, but it also comes with personal investment and increased self-worth and gratification that you're part of something that you weren't part of in the past. That would be the workforce. So there's an individual upside to this on top of an economic upside, and I know you know that. I just wanted to put it out there.
Absolutely, and for many families, this changes their whole living dynamic. For the moms and dads that are out there that have kids who've gone through university but are struggling to make the connection because they don't always get the social signals or they struggle in social environments, when we help somebody like that get a job, the whole family dynamic changes. People become more of who they were supposed to be, which is a fully participating citizen, and that includes having that opportunity to contribute, but also having that opportunity to be a taxpayer, that opportunity to be somebody else's equal. So it's a great opportunity, and we're really super proud of the work that has gone on here. We've got the programs running in St. John's, in Clarenville, in Corner Brook, and in Lab West. We've got dedicated staff. Folks in any of the provinces in Atlantic Canada who may be listening can look at the site. It's called autismatwork.ca. And that'll direct you to the province that will be able to help you. There are organizations in Moncton, Halifax, and Prince Edward Island that have been leaders in helping people find work, and they're our partners. I will say, Patty, that there is nobody I did not meet with about this project. As you know, I talked to everybody every chance I got, and what government finally understood with this is a new way. I went to the other provinces and I said, we have a solution. Let us come together, forget about our egos, about our programming and what we're doing. Let's collaborate and see if we can fix this problem. And government was interested because it was a new way of doing business. This wasn't somebody putting out a request. We went to government and said, we're going to collaborate across 4 provinces. It's never been done before. And we're really excited to have the opportunity to maybe solve some of the problems that we're seeing around folks who are neurodiverse.
It's terrific news, and I welcome it this morning. So it's one thing to create this program and to get it funded, provide the training so that people can enter or re-enter the workforce. But of course, then we need people to hire them. I know that so many people operating business may have some adverse reaction to hiring someone from the disabled community and or someone on the autism spectrum. What's your message to employers? Because that's the other half of this component, which is obviously critically important.
Well, I tell you what, one thing I've learned over my 35-year career, businesses know how to manage change, and they're experts at it. So I'm just asking them to apply that knowledge of change to their HR. What any business is looking for, Patty, is a dedicated, well-versed, skilled-up employee. And those are the folks that we're matching. This isn't a case of where we're going to place somebody and they're going to have to learn. If you need somebody who knows how to do GIS mapping for oil exploration, we'll get that person. If you need somebody who's got a degree in finance and is able to look at spreadsheets for 8 hours a day, we're going to get that person. This is really about understanding the employer's need. The employer needs a good employee, and that's what we have. And what we really are trying to do here is get people over that first hump, get them in the door so that they can demonstrate their skills. An employer doesn't care at the end of the day. They're not in business to hire people. They're in business to make money.
Yep.
So I'm going to give you the great employee that you're looking for, and we're going to give you some pointers about how to get the best out of them. So maybe you might give them direction through an email rather than telling them so that there's no confusion. But folks have the skills. They maybe sometimes don't always receive the information the way you and I do, but businesses know change. And what businesses know is that if they don't adapt, they're not going to be able to survive the demographic changes. Not only we have in Newfoundland and Labrador, but across the country. You know, we're the oldest population. We have more heart disease, kidney disease. We're one of the first provinces to go over one of the biggest portions of our population being over 65. So we have to include all of the folks in the labor market if we want the labor market to be healthy. But businesses know that they're going to need some help, and that's what we're here for. Bravo.
Is the training and the program up and running already, or still need some time to hit the ground?
No, we started in April, but it's been a very long process. I mean, here's a kudos to Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency and ESDC. The staff at those organizations have been working with us for like 6 months and have really been doing great wonders. But I'm proud to say we're only really announced 2 weeks. We've got 79 people in the program, and 28 people have already gotten work.
Bravo. Sean, appreciate the good news and your efforts here this morning, or over the months. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Patty. All right, cheers.
All right, bye-bye. Sean Wiltshire, CEO of Avalon Employment. That's an excellent news story. Just very quickly, been asked, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I talk about that? So the story of the new Minister of Tourism, Culture, Arts and Recreation, Andrew Barber, and the bit about TikTok videos and stuff. Like, number one, TikTok videos about dancing or cooking or yoga or exercise or making poo out of Play-Doh or whatever, I couldn't care less. I honestly couldn't. Issues regarding, thoughts on public policy regarding government operations, tourism or immigration, sure, we'll ask questions. But the social media stuff and the to and fro now, and now apparently there's record of then Premier Hogan retweeting Donald Trump as for starters, if there's very specific questions we can ask of either individual, either party, let's do it. But this to and fro about social media wars, it's tedious. It really, truly is. So if you want specific questions asked that has an impact on government policy and my life and your life and our taxes and jobs and healthcare and education and criminal justice, let's do that. And for the parties, let's get serious. Let's be serious people here, because they're serious times. Let's take a break. Can you stay right there to talk about the major projects office and what's not on the 2 aforementioned lists? Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 1. Ken, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
I just want to tell you a little bit about a post that was published on Facebook by Republic of Newfoundland and Labrador. And I'm just going to read their post. There's only a couple paragraphs, okay? So they go on, they say that both provincial and federal Liberal governments have been promising that Bay du North and Gull Island would be placed on the national fast-track list. But last night, when Mark Carney unveiled the structure, Newfoundland and Labrador wasn't mentioned at all. Our projects weren't even listed. They weren't included. They weren't even acknowledged. Meanwhile, politicians here at home were telling us they would be. So who's telling the truth? Who's telling us what you want to hear? And they finish with, Newfoundland and Labrador deserves honesty, not empty promises.
Who said they would be on any major projects list? I know there's people talk about we hope they are, they should be. Well, I don't recall anybody saying they would be. In fact, I mean, I've been talking about this for quite a long time, but I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say they are going to be on one list, whether the original list or the list announced yesterday. So let's dig into it a little bit. Bay du Nord at this moment in time is fully approved. We're waiting on Equinor. Equinor is the hold up here. No level of government, because that's simply a business decision has to be made at this moment in time. So for either or project, Gull Island and or Bay du Nord, what do you think federal involvement or fast tracking would include? Because I get the Bay du Nord conversation, but the fast track is over. The approvals are done. So I don't know how that gets on a list when we're just waiting for Equinor. Now, there's one area where Ottawa could play a role with Bay du Nord, and that's the whole issue regarding Article 82 of the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, which means that outside our economic protected zone, that there's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars of royalties have to be paid to developing nations. Canada signed on to it. There was an argument between the province and the country, or the federal government, about who should pay it. This province didn't sign that declaration, or that convention of the Law of the Sea. The country signed it. So maybe there's a role for Ottawa to play there. But beyond that, what do you think Bay du Nord would be involving the feds?
You know what? I gotta be honest with you, Patty. I know very little about these projects or anything like that. I did read this morning that Carney fast-tracked an LNG project out of BC that he has invested or vested interest in. I don't know if that's true, but I did read the report and stuff like that. So I don't know. Like, I'm not like you. I'm not very knowledgeable on these things and stuff like that. But it's interesting. And this piece that was published by Republic of Newfoundland and Labrador. So I think what you're telling me is that this is not fact-based.
No, some of it's not. And I'm not trying to play who knows what game with you at all, Ken. I'm just having a conversation. And I'm just making the point that Bay du Nord, like the Major Projects Office, is to fast-track projects. And so this one has been through the entire process. Like, it's over. As far as governments are involved, well, that's not true. The benefits agreement between the province and Equinor about jobs and royalties and equity stake, that's yet to be decided, but it's approved by the feds. So that's the only reason I mention it. But they could play a role with Article 82 and hundreds of millions of dollars. And, like, reference Kitimat and the liquefied natural gas Phase 2. So that's LNG Canada. That Phase 2. Phase 1 is the processing facility that's already up and running in Kitimat. And what I mentioned off the show is some of these are regurgitated projects. That includes LNG too, because that's been approved for years. So that's where I think we're getting a little bit misled about some of these projects. Like the Sisson mine in New Brunswick, critical minerals, that's been approved for a long time. So I don't really understand the list, to be honest with you, nor do I understand what's going to get fast-tracked for projects that have been out there, and some of them already approved. So I really don't know what belongs on the list or what doesn't belong on the list. Let's move on to Gull Island. There's possibly a role to play there, no doubt about it. Let's just think about the fact that Quebec is currently actively and aggressively lobbying the federal government for contributions to transmission, which would be part and parcel part of the Gull Island project, because you got to get the power out of there. It's not just build a dam. So there's possibly a role for the feds there.
Well, anyway, Patty, but I do have a question for you.
Sure.
A couple of years ago, didn't the Chancellor of Germany come to Newfoundland looking for its LNG, and wasn't there a pilot project already started. I believe it was in Placentia to export Newfoundland LNG. I don't know. These are just questions.
It's a good question. So there was a proposal in conjunction with some indigenous communities to pipeline gas from offshore to shore on the island. And I don't know how much activity that proposal has since gotten. I mean, when the Europeans came to Canada talking about LNG, then Prime Minister Trudeau stuck his foot right squarely down his mouth and throat by saying there's no business model for it. It's not really up to the government to decide whether or not there's a business model. It's up to business to decide whether or not there's a business model. And in this province, natural gas, which we know there's trillions of cubic feet of natural gas off our shores, the number one problem for industry and government today with our gas is there's no royalty regime. So no company knows exactly what kind of profit they can make off it because they don't know how much money they'd owe the government. So until the government gets off their you-know-whats and creates this royalty regime, then we can have a further conversation about what the future of natural gas looks like.
Okay, another question. Wasn't this... Okay, when I believe he said there was no business case. I don't know if he was in Alberta when he said that or if he was in Newfoundland. But wasn't that what kick-started the wind to hydrogen in so-called industry in Newfoundland? Wasn't that the beginning of it when Trudeau said that?
Well, there certainly is very similar timeframes. The Chancellor of Germany and many huge European companies and their leadership, they were indeed in Stephenville, and they were talking about wind. At that time, it was very wind-specific conversation. Well, not wind, green hydrogen. And, of course, all of those MOUs with Germany, the MOU with the Port of Rotterdam, the MOU with the Port of Amsterdam, it's just a piece of paper. Like, they haven't even started to build any off-taking capacity infrastructure on the other side of the pond. None. So all of these MOUs, specifically on wind, green hydrogen, ammonia for export, that's still at the very much... It's just one step past the starting line by the look of it.
Okay, well, with that said, Patty, my question is it too late to develop Newfoundland's LNG, and wouldn't this bring in massive revenue for Newfoundlanders, like revenue? Like, wouldn't this make the lives of Newfoundlanders better? The government, whoever they are, liberal or conservative, wouldn't put money into their coffers?
Which projects? The onshore wind?
No, the LNG project.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if all the natural gas, of course you could compress it or liquefy it. Yes, it would absolutely be money, and it probably would expand the job base, consequently expand the tax base. So yeah, there is money in it, no doubt about it.
And there would have to be no government subsidies involved, right? It could be total self-sufficient project.
That's a bit of a moving target, because the provincial government has made a move in the recent past to give companies a break on exploration. Like just last summer, ExxonMobil got a $50 million break, which is not huge when you talk about the cost of exploring, but oil and gas companies do indeed receive some support from governments. Could they be standalone on their own 2 feet? Absolutely. Will they? That depends. If they ask for government money or government support and get it, because of course every business asks for that kind of stuff. So the oil and gas subsidies in this country are significant, but here absolutely profit to be made offshore regarding gas. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, I was following the provincial elections very closely, okay, and I don't recall Tony Wakeham talking about Newfoundland LNG. It was more talking about what's more immediate, like crime, drugs, and stuff like that, right? But still, it seems like just like the wind industry, that seems to be a dead topic now. The LNG industry, the possibility for that's all water under the bridge now, too.
Yeah, I don't think that's a dead issue in the least, to be honest. I think we're going to hear more about that. Look, the oil and gas industry, the oil operators off our shores, they know what they're sitting on regarding natural gas. You know, whether or not they can make a buck at it at this moment in point is still up for debate. Look, I can't speak for oil executives, but their break-even per the price per MMBTU, which is how you price and sell gas versus barrels of oil, they need it to be a little bit higher than it is today for them to make money, because it's different when you do it offshore than it is if you do it onshore, like they talk about in Alberta or what have you. So I don't know what their number is these days about breaking even, but at this moment in time, they kind of just push the natural gas back into the reservoir so that they can push the oil up. So, yeah, there's a lot to it. It's pretty complicated.
So, with having said that, Patty, why is Mark Carney suddenly invested in LNG? A lot of people are saying it's simple. It's because he's got a vested interest through Brookfield's assets, I believe. I
don't know if Brookfield has any holdings with LNG Canada. I don't know. I'd have to look, but I'm not sure, to be honest.
Well, I'll tell you what. I watched read and watched the report this morning, and whether that guy is telling the truth or not, or whether it's factual what he's saying, and he's pretty good. And he's a pretty good investigator and stuff like that. And according to him, Carney has definitely got his hands into Brookfield, who Carney is involved with, and hundreds of other people. Like I said, it's funny that LNG is suddenly on the. I don't even know what the word to say here, but suddenly LNG is being talked about. But Newfoundland's being left behind, and like you said, they've got trillions of cubic feet out there that could be exported.
Yeah, look, blind trust is not perfect, but it's the only tool we currently have at this moment in time. But it's also important to remember, plenty of gas projects have been approved well before Mark Carney had anything to do with being in a position of power as an elected official. Like LNG Phase 1, that was a Trudeau Liberal project. So, look, Brookfield is going to inevitably have its hooks in or vested interest in a lot of stuff, including, notably, modular homes. So they've got huge holdings in that arena. But let's also mention the fact that Brookfield Asset Management sits on about $1 trillion of assets. So inevitably, they're going to be involved in a variety of investment arenas, infrastructure projects, just based on the fact that $1 trillion is a lot. And on that front, look, it's nothing perfect about a blind trust, no doubt about it. But you know who else has investments and stock in Brookfield? Pierre Poilievre.
No. I'm sorry?
I was just asking the bearer question. That you know who else has investments in Brookfield? Pierre Poilievre.
So there's hundreds of people got investments in Brookfield.
Oh, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions have investments in companies that sit on $1 trillion in assets. No doubt about it.
Oh, anyway, Patty, I read this article, if you will, this morning, and I said, well, I'm going to phone Patty and get his opinion on this, and in regards to what some guy out in BC reports, is what he's saying is right? I don't know, but maybe it deserves further investigation, and I don't know. Things like I don't know what. I really don't know what to say about it. I don't spend all day figuring out what Mark Carney is doing. All I can say right now, from where I sit in the Goulds, the elbows up crowd, they should have. A lot of them should be going through buyer's remorse now. If they were paying attention, they wouldn't have voted for Carney in the first place. And I don't mean this to turn into. I hate the Liberals or I hate the Conservatives, but so far in his 8-month being in power for 8 or 9 months, nothing seems to be coming out of this for Newfoundland.
Well, my last comment is there a place for Bay and Nord and Gull and other infrastructure projects in this province? Could they be on the list, including critical minerals in Labrador? My short answer is yes. If there's critical minerals mines in other parts of the country on the list, why couldn't they be here? But some of this is about how far along some of these explorations and projects and approvals and permits. So there's a lot to it, but should this province be on the list at some point? Absolutely, 100%. Ken, I appreciate your time. Thanks for calling this morning. I got to get to the break.
All right, thank you, guys.
Well, all the best. Bye-bye. All right, let's get that break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. So, update now on the judicial recount request put forward in 3 different voting districts. Join us from the newsroom, Brian Medore. Brian, you're on the air.
Boy, high drama in Supreme Court, Newfoundland and Labrador this morning. Paddy, there is, oddly enough, there is going to be a judicial recount in the district of Topsail Paradise. That was won by Paul Dinn over Dan Bobbitt, just over 100 votes. So that had the largest gap, but that is going to be the recount. On the Burin Peninsula, the Placentia Bellevue district, that one is not going to be recounted. That was denied. That was won by Jeff Dwyer over Brian Keating. And the other district was the closest one, 18 votes, where Derek Bennett lost, the Liberal, and that recount was denied. So the drama continues. The ruling came this morning by Supreme Court Justice Fons Fowler. Brian Callahan was there. We'll have lots more information throughout the morning and on VOCM.com on this story. Yeah, it'd be nice to know a little bit more about why that district was chosen, because it's got to be about voting irregularities. Votes that were counted that were very similar got discounted. So I'd like to know more about that, because the 18-vote challenge does not get accepted, but the 102-vote challenge does. So there's something going on there. Yeah, and we know it kind of focused on the special ballots, so it had to be something with that. We'll try to get some more information from Brian Callahan on that, and he's also trying to get some reaction from the players at the courthouse as well. Yeah, when we get some updates, you're welcome back on the show. Thanks for doing this, Brian. Right you are. Boy, oh boy, that's fascinating. The one with the largest discrepancy of votes gets accepted for judicial recount, which is going to take time. Look, I don't dispute the right to challenge if you think you have grounds, and fair ball. But we also know that Premier Wakeham said the House will not be reopened until all the judicial recount issues are solved. Justice Fowler said that might not be until the end of the month, and that's an ambitious timeline, so there's a complicating factor. Let's go to line number 3. Charlie, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Good morning.
That was quite a surprise there, I must say. Paddy, I'm going to go through 3 or 4 things fairly quickly. What if the PCs said about the Rothschild report, the other government refused to release it? Can they now release that themselves?
They can. I asked Premier Wakeham that direct question here on this program, and he says, well, he hasn't seen it, so he doesn't know what might be in it that is legitimate commercial sensitivities or what have you, but he has seen it, or he has not seen it, but he said he would release everything that he can, and I'll hold him to it.
Okay, great. The RCMP investigation into fraud with the nurses' travel, what's happening there? Have you heard anything?
There's been nothing advanced and publicly disclosed at this moment in time, so I don't know.
Okay. Regarding seals, I noticed when DFO talked about the cod stocks diminishing in that particular area, they mentioned a warming of water and so on. They did not mention seals as far as I know. And I was thinking, Paddy, I wrote you about pet food and billions of dollars there and how good seal meat is for pets. I was thinking back, the Newfoundland governments, be they PC or Liberal, they've never done a nationwide ad campaign like they did with tourism, which was very effective. Regarding what the seals are doing to the cod, they especially have the facts now to back them up. If you had a strong ad campaign in your face with cods with their bellies torn out and cows juxtaposed against seals, the fact that we eat those and we can't eat seals, an ad that really is in your face. Have you ever heard of anything by either government over the years that has done anything to educate the Canadian public?
Minimal efforts. I mean, there was challenges to the pathetic decision made by the World Trade Organization. While Europeans were feasting on foie gras and going to bullfights, they banned the trade of seal-related products, so that's out there. And there was a challenge to it. It was pretty lame. There has been campaigns, say, for instance, in Ottawa, where they're serving seal in the cafeteria and talking about the benefits to Indigenous communities and what have you, but no large-scale, glossy, glitzy ad campaign that I can recall anyway.
No, and we have the facts behind us. The Republicans found out in the States these ads that are misleading and so on, but that are strongly worded, and we don't need to have lawyers. We've got the facts with us, And it seems to me that at this stage, I think Canadians should know what's happening out here, that our cod is being decimated, fishermen are being affected, and we have all that protein. It's not a matter of the seal hunt endangering the seals anymore. Everybody knows that. So I think they should, this PC government, that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll leave it at that, but I want to say more about that at another time, right?
Sure. I don't think Canadians are the problem, to be honest with you. I think it's everybody else. Like, if I try to go to New York City with my sealskin boots on, I have to cross the border with my socks. They'll take my boots. So, I mean, we've got problems with trading partners, I think, much more of consequence than what other Canadians think about it necessarily.
Canadians don't understand, is my opinion, and
Probably not.
I've got that from many sources.
Sure.
Canadians don't understand the that's happening out here to the cod, and they sort of, a lot of people fell in with those ads. You've got no pressure. Even the Green Party, who I'd support in most cases, they've come out against it. So I don't believe Canadians are well up on this, and I think if they were, we some of the members, especially conservative members, to start talking about this more. But anyway, just a thought.
It's amazing what draws the attention of individuals, and this is not about what side of the political spectrum you're on. I mean, we had national news coverage, international news coverage of 300 ostriches getting culled, and we have very little discussion about 4.6 million harp seals out there. Now all of a sudden, we're going to have to include that fact in stock assessments. What? I mean, what does that even mean? What does it actually change? The answer to that is nothing.
Exactly. Well, to me, that would be a good first step, but we can debate that further some other time.
Sure.
Some of the homesteaders you've had on, I really admire these people for being able to do that work and put up with what they had. They say it's a dream, and I'm glad they're fulfilling their dream. But I've noticed a couple of them have made comments, one regarding the storm surge, and all people said, well, we always got that, and he was kind of poo-pooing the influence of climate change on this. And I thought, you come from Alberta, and you're talking in bars, and you're talking among yourselves, of course, about climate change being a hoax, and your own heads of your own companies know exactly what's going on, and they're now saying it. But I'd like to get cherry pick of my own. We used to go across in Bay Roberts and go across on the sea ice to Ferguson's Island, and that was in the 50s and 60s, and dig mussels. Here in Eastport in the 50s up to the 70s, they used to cross the bay here for over to Seal Island to get their wood. And lastly, in the last 25 years we've spent here, first few years here, there was about a month of days that we debated going out. It was so cold. This last 10 years, you might get 2 or 3 days that you would not consider going out. So if they want to cherry pick about the past and that, it's very clear what's happened. But anyway, I guess I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, as someone living in the north, this is information coming from a listener. There has been a recent national ad campaign by the Newfoundland Labrador Seal Association, including market research and a follow-up ad campaign to come. But it obviously didn't catch my attention, so I don't know at what scale it was, but that's information shared by our marketing professional just then. Charlie, appreciate the time as usual. Thanks a lot.
Can I have one
Quickly.
more point?
Yep.
On the Epstein files, what's coming out from the Epstein estate is going to be a lot more effective and revealing than what's going to come, I believe, from the if Congress can make them turn over that, because I think that report is going to be sanitized. There's no reason they haven't already done that, and the other worry, of course, is that Trump will veto it even if the other two pass. Yeah. But anyway, I think what will hurt him most is tariffs and what they're doing to the American people, especially the poorer people. And somebody said, what would be his motivation in putting in those tariffs? because he said it was they always had a trade deficit. His motivation is what it always is with him. It's revenge. He doesn't care if they have to pay more in the States. He just wants to get back at them, right?
Well, we were told that the tariffs would have no impact on price, but now all of a sudden they're going to exempt coffee. Why? Because it drove the price of coffee up. What do you know? And what does Nigeria have that the government of the United States might want? Well, critical minerals, maybe? What about Venezuela? Oil, maybe? The biggest oil reserves in the world, even more than Saudi Arabia, are in Venezuela. So maybe, just maybe, there's ulterior motives. What do you know? And the Epstein stuff, look, I'm getting sick of the political hot potato that it's become. If you raped a child, go to prison. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, and it's a hoax, because Prince Andrew lost his his position in the monarchy, ripped off his military rank because of a hoax. What a load of nonsense. If you raped a child, go to prison. The end. I don't know how come that's such a difficult conversation. Charlie, I got to get going. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Patty.
All the best. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Charlie Oliver's in the queue. He's with Think NL, wants to talk about the Upper Churchill MOU. Dwan Street, the president of the FFAW, talk about the most recent cod stock assessment, 3PS, I assume, and then whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6. Say good morning to Charlie Oliver. He's with Think NL. Hello, Charlie. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. Thank you, and to your listeners for joining this, what we're calling Conversation and Possibilities.
Let's do it. Where do we start?
Where do we start? I took the time to read the MOU, as many have, and like many more have found it confusing and gave it some further thought. Coming at it from a totally different perspective, I was asking myself, what are we missing? Not so much as what's in the deal, as what are we missing? And as we've done in the fisheries in the past, I sense that we may have overlooked some value-added opportunities that would be available if we look at it with a different lens. So did some research, and the basic components that you look at up there, as you, Paddy, know, is that it's a very cold climate, it has lots of water, and it can potentially have abundant hydro. That today speaks as saying we should look at the AI and data center industry and say, is there a market there for us to value add, create construction, create jobs, add to our tax base? And that's what got me going on this particular conversation on possibilities.
Yeah, let's have that conversation. I can only speak for myself, obviously. But if we look at the amount of electricity that could be generated on the Churchill River, whether it be expansion at the upper or the development at Gull, and remember, at this current moment in time, Gull is pretty much under the authority of Hydro-Quebec if this MOU ever becomes definitive agreements. But when we look at power being produced and cost-benefit analysis of biggest bang for the buck, if you compare expansion in the mining industry or opening new mines to artificial intelligence data centers, the only bit of analysis I've ever been able to wrap my mind around is industry, not including AI, is a bigger bang for the buck. Your thoughts?
100% agree. And I guess to give some credit or balance back to the negotiating team, when this was probably commenced, AI was in the infancy. Past 4 to 5 years, it has expanded, and it is an industry whereby there is more value for every megawatt that comes out of it going into compute, into AI, than it would be to simply export it. And the question is, how do we attract that? And Paddy, there's been recent changes in that industry over the past 6 to 8 months where go back in time, and the challenge was to bring electricity to these data centers, to these big warehouses. That's changing now where they're using a term called compute to power. And what that means is they will go to the source of the electricity. They would go to Labrador. They would build there close to it, thereby eliminating the challenge of transmission lines, construction. And from that, you have an industry that gets developed and grows exponentially. And I invite you or any and all listeners to just do a little bit of research and see how significant this industry has become, what its growth is. So projecting it to be a $400 billion industry by 2030. Reasonable-sized centers use 150 megawatts of power. The partners out there are numerous today. There's the first tier, which I identified in the press release that we sent out. There's a second tier of people who will go in and develop and sell to these first tier guys. So, Paddy, it's like back in the days of the fish. If we caught our fish, send it to China, they processed it, we bought it back, we lost out on the benefits. We were export only. I'm sensing that this is the same here. We are somewhat taking a whole bunch of potential opportunities that may possibly be there and not digging deep enough to explore. Is there benefit to us?
Yeah, I guess it would be, who gets richer? Does the province or the region or simply the business really stand to benefit the most? Obviously the business, because they put the capital investment in, but it's return to government based on access to power, access to water. I'd like to see a little bit more on it. I'm not going to poo-poo anything until I see all of the math. But, you mentioned compute to power. Not that I know a lot about it, but I know a little bit about it. Like if you're doing mathematical calculations, you can use a scientific calendar. But if you're talking about solving exponential equations and using flops, which I know is a floating point operations per second, that's a compute to power measurement, and it's extremely complicated. I mean, we're talking about repeated multiplication, positive integers, flops. I tried to figure out flops over the course of a weekend. I finally threw my hands in the air and said, what the hell am I doing? I can't figure this out at all. But I do know enough about it as to what that means insofar as attractive nature to business.
100%, Paddy. But the thing is, and what I'm suggesting here, I'm not trying to jump on one side or the other side of the MOU conversation that's in the public forum today. All I'm suggesting is, guys, can we take a deep breath? Can we Newfoundlanders look at this and say, what are we giving up, one? And if we commit long term and don't have the right to recall power or own power, are we doing an injustice not only to ourselves, but to the future generations, which I call the MJ factor, the 3-year-old today who'll be 19 when the existing contract expires? So we all love things sooner than later. We would like to see a deal faster, get the money into our economy faster so that we could live better today, but we got to balance that with what's happening out with the future. And so my invitation to the Premier, and I felt it incumbent upon me as a citizen to put this out and say, listen, we have a golden opportunity right now. You are a new leader, new government, new opportunity. Why would you not take the time and do a deep dive, not only on the existing terms and metrics in this deal, but from another total perspective? What are we missing? Like we read last week that the mining industry is most likely going to go from 350 megs of required power now to another 355 years from now. Is this deal that was about to be signed provide for that growth, or does it not? So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let us understand that we are going to sign a 50-year deal. You, Paddy, are at the altar, and you're going to marry this lady for 50 years. I would like to be the minister and ask the following question. Is there anybody in the audience see any reason why Paddy should not marry this beautiful bride? Speak up now or forever hold your peace.
I'm not looking over my shoulder to that question.
But you get my drift.
I do.
This is all about possibilities, not politics. This is about, we got a golden opportunity to look at this, even within the existing time frame within which we are supposed to respond on this one. Yeah. And Paddy, let's understand something else. Quebec currently is a major player in this particular space. So, and I would be, if I were them, and this is not poo-pooing Quebec, this is saying that Quebec today is using their power, they're using our power to create, maintain, and expand AI data centers as we speak. So there's a business case there. It is growing exponentially. Talk to people in the industry. And the Premier, I think, is open-minded enough. He's going to go at this. And I just think that to look at this with a fresh look does not hurt anybody, or any time.
Well, industrial strategy has to include everything, right? From the fishery to mining to potentially AI. I also wonder, look, for starters, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, those guys, they're nobody's friends except their own. Throw that out there. It's also proximity to where the compute to power is located. Like, there's a reason why centralized locations like Quebec and Ontario and in Silicon Valley and in New Jersey or New York, there's a reason why they're trying to set up shop there because the customer base is right there. I mean, they can reach out and touch millions of people. I wonder how that translates to their business model if it was in remote locations like Labrador. I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll throw it on top of the pile that we've created here this morning. Charlie, anything else you have to say this morning?
Well, yeah, let me just come back on that for one quick second, and that is, and you and I are not techie people on this, so it is beyond you and I to make these decisions, as it is beyond you and I to analyze the current MOU. However, the industry is now moving to remote centers because they want to be close to power. There's a factor latency, which is how much data would you lose on a fiber optic cable if you take it from Labrador and you bring it to Herring Cove, Nova Scotia, and from there, do I want to bring it down to the United States, or do I want to cross over to Europe? We have the flexibility.
Oh, sure.
Again, not my field of expertise, but we need to analyze it and look at it. So the answer is yes, it can operate very effectively, very remotely, and the cost savings on the transmission aspects, et cetera, are fabulous. Last comment, Patty, I'm inviting every single body in our province to take the time, take a deep breath. Let's try to depoliticize this thing. Let's look at the possibilities, at the probabilities. And I would like to invite you to do one thing for me, if it's possible. And I don't know if you can or can't. And that is, are you able to take the communication that you got on my press release, the letters I sent to the Premier, drop them on your website so that anybody and everybody can grab, read, and get a little tiny bit of a sense in a bit more detail of what we chatted about here the past 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, I certainly don't have any authority to drop anything on our website, but I will encourage the newsroom to do exactly that. That's their department, but I can't see that being an issue, Charlie, so I'll speak with them right after the programme this morning.
Thanks, Patty. Really appreciate it. And let's see where this goes. Let's keep it positive and think about value-added benefits for sure.
Appreciate the time, Charlie. Thanks a lot.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, and imagine, I've spent the weekend trying to figure out flops. I mean, I can barely operate the computer, let alone try to figure out floating point operations per second. Man, what am I like? Let's take a break. Welcome back to the programme. Let's go. Line number 8, say more to the president at the FFAW. That's Dwan Street. Dwan, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you. Listen, fair warning, we're probably going to get partway through the conversation. Put you on hold for the news, come back and finish. How's that?
No worries.
Okay, where do you want to start? 3PS Scott?
Yeah, so Patty, I mean, usually when you get to say I was right, there's a little bit of satisfaction in that, but it's hard to take any satisfaction from the vindication we got yesterday when DFO presented the results of the latest assessment on 3PS cod. You know, I heard Charlie there earlier talk about seals, and 100%. Grey seal predation in 3PS on cod is through the roof. And you'll see that in the numbers when they talk about natural mortality. And natural mortality on that stock far, far, far exceeds fishing mortality. So what DFO doesn't really do is break that out and deal with it as we feel they should. So that's been a consistent message from us as well. But, Patty, we have been sounding the alarm on the management of this stock for at least a decade. You know, I've been with the union for 11 years now. And back in 2015, there was a reassessment for the offshore's marine stewardship certification on that stock. And we are on record of saying that DFO and the offshore's outlook on this stock was far too optimistic. And yesterday, you know, we asked a couple of questions, and DFO put a lot of it down to warming waters and migration of fish, and tried to brush a very, very key element kind of under the rug by saying, well, in the last assessments, 10% of the stock was inshore, but now it's 40%. So on the surface, that tells your listeners that fish has moved, right? But then they put up some heat maps. And we were like, hold on now, back the bus up a little bit and let us look at this. And it didn't take us very long to look at those heat maps and say, where did all the red in the offshore go? And myself, our scientist Aaron Carruthers, and some other folks on the call looked and said, no, like this fish hasn't migrated. This fish is missing. And our argument, Patty, I hate to say that, we're still arguing the same that northern cod harvesters were arguing in the 80s, leading into the 90s, and what was the absolute catastrophic collapse of northern cod. And that was The offshore is saying there's plenty of fish out there. We're not seeing it. We can't catch our quotas. The fish we're seeing is healthy, but we're not seeing the numbers. And we've been sounding the alarm for a long time to say, pretty simple science. When cod spawn, they aggregate, they contract. When a stock is in decline, they aggregate and they contract. And what draggers do, draggers are fish hunters, right? That's what they do. They find these aggregations, they swoop them up, and they move on to the next one. And it was very, very clear on those maps yesterday that those fish are gone. So it is our opinion that this is not all due to climate change. This is not due to predation. This is due to mismanagement. It's due to overfishing, and it's due to the same mistakes that DFO made in the 80s and 90s on northern cod, and now we're here again.
And here we are. Dwan, I am going to put you on hold because there's more to this conversation that I'd like to have. So let's do that, okay?
Sure thing.
Okay, there's Dwan Street on hold. How are we doing out there otherwise? Dave, let's get a break for the news. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's rejoin Dwan Street on 8. Dwan, you're on the air.
Thanks, Eddie.
No problem. So we talked about the Marine Institute research into harp seals, and you talked about the predation rates, 24 times more than the commercial fishery. I just wanted to put that number out there for additional context. Okay. So the fish are gone. That's okay. And even a quote directly from the DFO scientist: we can't fix the past, but we can take responsibility for how we manage the future. All right, so what are we supposed to do with this information? The Marine Institute research paints a very clear picture, but what next? DFO's admittance or mea culpa is one thing, but what next?
Yeah, so that study that was recently released, of course, that's on harp seals. The issue in 3PS is gray seals. Yeah. And, different species, totally the same problem. And again, that's listed under natural mortality. And we've been telling DFO to deal with that for a long time. Of course, in 2022, DFO put a rebuilding plan in place. Any stock that's in the critical zone, it's in the Fisheries Act now, it has to have a rebuilding plan. And the problem we have, Patty, and you're right, predation needs to be dealt with. But the easy thing for a DFO always is to say, let's cut out fishing and we're going to be fine. It's been really well known that fishing mortality on this stock hasn't been the issue. And we've been banging the tables on this one to say, okay, well, if you're telling us that cutting back on fishing activity is going to make a difference, it's not the passive gears. Like, when that stock hit 10,000 tons, there was a gentleman's agreement with DFO. And, of course, it was in black and white at some point, but conveniently nobody can find it anymore. That once that stock went below, the TAC went below 10,000 metric tons, the offshore was out. And, of course, that hasn't happened. And when you look at the low TAC levels on that stock, it's absolutely alarming to know that dragging, which is not a passive gear, that's hunting that fish is still permitted. So if that's the case, you're clearly not concerned with fishing mortality. And we've been arguing that that rebuilding plan is not going to work. Back in 2015, if you look back at that reassessment for MSC on that stock, our arguments were that DFO, when it came to science and management, were relying way too much on what they call the RV survey. So it's a research vessel survey. And it's in the offshore areas. Much like they did back with the demise of northern cod, they were ignoring the Sentinel Index that was saying, this stock is declining. They were ignoring the logbooks of inshore harvesters that were saying, yeah, our catches are declining. But the offshore were saying, look at all this fish. Again, it aggregates, it contracts. So DFO were repeating the same mistakes, and we've been banging the tables for at least 10 years to say you're headed down the same road. And I think yesterday when all those numbers and those heat maps came up, you kind of saw it in the faces of DFO science to say, oh, yeah, maybe you were right. We knew we were going to be right. Inshore harvesters have been sounding the alarm on this for far too long and not being heard. So I think what we need to do here, first step, is reopen that rebuilding plan because it's not worth the paper it's written on, and let's start over. And let's start taking inshore harvesters seriously. Learn from the past, because if all we're going to do is continue to ignore what inshore harvesters are seeing and saying, they're stewards of the resource. They don't want to see the stock decline. But harvesters in 3PS, they're multi-species enterprises. Very, very low tax, but they rely on this fishery. And when all we see is just complete decimation, no matter what we do, what we say, and DFO just constantly pandering to the offshore, it really makes us question which master they're really serving.
Yeah, it's a pretty fair question. Anything else on that front? Because I have another question I'd like to pose.
No. I mean, obviously, it's my opinion that every inshore harvester in 3PS right now has the right to repeat a very, very famous John Crosby quote, because they didn't, and we know who did. And the fact that we're even having this conversation 30-odd years after the moratorium on Northern cod, and still harping the same messages, I mean, it's absolutely disgraceful as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, he, nor me, nor you took the fish out of the you-know-what water. All right. Processing. Like, we've talked about the need to expand processing capacity in this province for quite a long time. We can talk about foreign concentration and Royal Greenland and all the rest of it, but when the plant in St. Mary's burns down, that is making the upcoming snow crab overlap season with cod going to be an enormous headache, given the fact it was already a pain last year. So what do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, that was absolutely tragic, Patty. I mean, when the news started coming in on that, I feel for that community, for all St. Mary's Bay. What we were seeing with that competition, it was driving prices, harvesters were happy, and it was finally a move in the right direction. Obviously, we never want to see a loss like that. We need more processing capacity in both crab and cod. Cod being the big one because, of course, ice water, that's the majority processor, and that plant operates almost 365 days a year, and we're in constant discussions with Alberta when it comes to supply of fish, but it's always going to be an issue until more processing licenses are issued, more plants open up, and we do see interest from smaller buyers that want to get into groundfish. Until that happens, we're going to have a pretty big headache. We had a significant increase in the TAC in Northern cod this year, and I will say DFO has been very receptive to adjusting management measures to get that fish out of the water. We're a little over 80% caught now, which is great, given we're in November, and harvesters are able to make a decent dollar. But, if you don't have a sale for that fish, you can have as much fish to catch as you want, but it's just not going to come out of the water. So we have to start working with processors on, maybe it's different product forms, maybe it's different processing methods, and make sure that we're looking at the market potential. So those are some conversations that we're having, and really, really looking forward to sitting down with Minister O'Driscoll as well and having those conversations on how we can grow this industry, grow the groundfish industry in Newfoundland and Labrador, because, of course, crab goes in cycles, right? It's up and down, and cod is going to be much more important as we go down the road. So it's definitely a big conversation, and like you said, it's going to be a headache, but it's a necessary one. Any
comment on the lack of attention to the Atlantic Fisheries Fund in the federal budget, fueling it into the future?
Yeah, a little bit disappointed there. I know when we had our little crash of Mark Carney's campaign launch here, after that was one of the big commitments he made, other than listening to harvesters on the wharf and making decisions that way, which obviously hasn't happened on 3PS cod. But the continuation of AFF, because that was a very crucial fund in whether it comes to groundfish processing and capacity, lobster holding, and helping that industry. So it was helpful money, and it helped a lot of our members expand their operations, hook and line systems to help the quality of cod, some lobster technologies. It was really, really helpful money. So we're hoping that that decision is going to be revisited, and that the minister and the Prime Minister open that fund up again, because this industry needs investment from government, and any cuts and slashes there are certainly not welcome.
Appreciate the time, Duan. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. And before you go, the North Atlantic Fish and Marine Workboat Show is down at Mary Brown's today and tomorrow. So if any of your listeners are around, we have a booth, and we'd love to see them pop by, have a chat. Myself, Secretary-Treasurer Jamie Baker, and a lot of our incredible staff will be there, and we'd love to meet some new folks.
Appreciate your time. Have a nice weekend.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye. Duan Street, the president at the FFAW. Let's get a break in. Alistair's in Burgeo wants to talk with the Grey Seal. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number one. Alistair, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
Yes, Patty, I'd like to just have a few words to say this morning regarding the Grey Seal and the 3PS, 3P and cod stock.
Sure.
And first I'll say that I agree with 100% with what Ms. Street had to say. What she said, every word of it is true, and it was factual, as far as I know. Now, I've never been a fisherman, Patty, but I have been interested and fooled around with fishing boats for the last 70 years or more. And when it comes to the 3PN, 3PS stock, Patty, that stock has been raped with trawlers ever since the 1940s, the late 1940s. That's a time when I would say there was never a trawler fishing the northern cod. And that was raped by foreign trawlers and domestic trawlers. When I was a boy going to school, I could look out here to the south of Burgeo, and it would be like a city. I'm not kidding you, Patty. This is God's truth. The lights of all the trawlers that would be trawling up and down. And they could come into 3 miles in, Patty, as well. So, you know, that stock is beat from pillar to post, beyond a word of a doubt. At that time, there was the big inshore fishery, and I'm not talking about fishing, you know, Patty, 2 or 3 months a year. I'm talking about fishing 12 months a year. Mm-hmm. So I just want to give a little bit of background on what a beating that stock has taken. I was a guy who also did a lot of recreational fishery. And first, when all those rules, and you can't do this, and you can't do that, and you can't do something else, came in, Patty, we had 10 fish a day. So if you had 5 people aboard your boat, you could come in with 50 fish. If you had to go out of Burgeo now with just a jigger and catch 50 fish, that's 5 people, 10 fish each, you could go out on New Year's Day and you wouldn't come back until the end of the year. Now that's how far it's gone down. You'd have fish that you could hardly get over the rail, and now you've got fish, a couple of pound, Patty, that's about the size of it. A good sized trout is bigger than the cod. So that stock is definitely in trouble, that I guarantee you. Now the next thing is the gray seal. As far as I know, Patty, there's no hunt on the gray seal, and there never have been. But they've been continuously increasing. Another thing is I'm not sure of, but I think they breed on the Sable Island. So now, Patty, what better opportunity could you have than to go on Sable Island when these seals are breeding and call them, just like they did with the ostriches? That's my opinion, you know, Patty. Now, I know this don't go good with a lot of bleeding hearts, but that's the way that I feel. And I'm not kidding you this morning. What I'm telling you is true. I went to Robinson's shortly after my wife died and went in a home there. And, Patty, I used to drive down to St. David's and around the area just, I don't know, trying to stay alive, I guess. But anyway, Patty, just below the bridge, I believe it's Crabs River, you'd have 25 to 50 seals, gray seals now, Patty, bobbing just below the bridge. Now, that would be on your right-hand side going towards St. David's. On the left-hand side of the bridge, you had the salmon migrating up a river. And I don't know, but I assume probably up there might have been 3 or 4 fishery guardians or officers or something. Now, Patty, if those officers apprehended I'll say a half dozen illegal salmon during their year, that could be the extent of it. But that 25 or 30 poachers that I'm talking about that could have easily been shot right from the bridge, I guarantee you they got more than a dozen or half a dozen salmon.
No doubt.
Now, you know, Patty, you don't have to have a doctor's degree in biology or anything like that to know that somebody has got to sit down and forget this damn talking about bleeding heart stuff. I mean, I took part in the 1980 seal hunt. And Paddy, to see that hunt was destroyed just by the bardoes and so on and so forth. And there was a group of people called Newfoundlanders that really supplemented their income from that hunt. So Paddy, and while you know that, no, it doesn't mean anything to me, but I think common sense has got to play a part here somewhere. And I mean, if you're looking at the 3P and 3PS stock and so on, the fishing that's been removed from those areas. You've got the fish plant in Burgeo, Ramia, Galtos, which haven't produced a ground fish not since the moratorium. You've got trawler fleets from each one of those places. There's not one trawler left. And I would say, I'll just speak for a town of Burgeo, where there was probably 100 or so inshore fishermen. Paddy, you can count them all on one hand now. You don't need both. So I think if someone sat down and used common sense instead of AI and all the other things that's being used today, and I'm not saying that that's not good, the answer to this vision thing can be solved beyond a word of a doubt. We don't have to be at each other's throats and one thing and the other. The only thing, Paddy, that has saved this part of the South Coast is the lobster. So, you know, I mean, it's time to sit down and look at things realistically. And another thing, Paddy, even before our plants closed, the gray seal, whatever, has got a worm in its feces, and the codfish you get here in 3PN and the 3PS is loaded with worms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now, you know, I mean, I can't talk like a scientist or nothing like that, but just a few common sense facts that I know, if it was applied, I think it would do a lot towards recuperating and replenishing the 3PS cod stock.
I'm pretty sure there's both personal and commercial licenses available for grey seals and harps and hoods. They go very few for the greys, as far as I could tell. They actually expanded the personal license for grey seals and harp seals into PEI New Brunswick, because up until last year it was just Nova Scotia and this province. So they can go at the grey, but my understanding is very few people do it. You know, I don't dispute the point that something's got to be done with the seal population. And what's hilarious, or I don't know if that's the right word, if you look at DFO's statements about, you know, critical zone for 3PS cod and the offshore component just about virtually wiped out, and they call the harp and grey seal populations in a healthy zone. What? Nothing healthy about that many animals in those populations that we see off the shore. So will the politicians of the day have the stomach to instigate a call for the sake of? Remains to be seen. Certainly that has not been the case over the last 40 years, but we'll see into the future. But Alistair, I always appreciate a bit of common sense on this program as much as possible. Anything else you'd like to say before I go to the news break?
Well, you know, Paddy, I believe they also said that the codfish on the South Coast, their village was empty. Again, Paddy, I mean, and I'm making that same error. I'm saying they're cleaning up on the cod. But do you think that those seals aren't also eating the capelin, the squid, the herring, the mackerel? And that's what the cod wants.
Of course.
So they're starving the cod to death. They're eating the cod. And I don't know, Paddy, don't seem like anybody. Oh, no, you can't touch that seal. You can't touch that seal. Why can't you touch that seal? I know it sounds bad, you know, say go out on Sable Island and slaughter the works. It sounds bad. Yes, it sounds bad. But something has got to be done. I don't find it very entertaining for someone to say that the cod is decimated in 3 PN and 3 PS. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, wiping out the entire population, probably not wise for the balance of the ecosystem, but getting the population under control to manageable levels sounds like a very wise thing to do to me. And again, like you, I'm not a scientist, but I do have 2 eyes and I do have 2 ears. Alistair, great to have you on the show. I appreciate you making time.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Same to you, sir. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break for the news. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Lynn. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Just calling to see if any of your listening audience have had any experience with trigeminal neuralgia. And if so, have they found any relief in anything that they've been given?
I know somebody that suffers from it, as a matter of fact. So it's also called like tic douloureux or something. And this person that I know, the shock of pain in the face, he gets it in the neck and the cheek and the jaw, I'm pretty sure. And it can last for minutes on end. So I don't know what he does for it, but I can ask.
If you would, that would be much appreciated.
So tell us about your own experience with it, Lynn.
Well, it's not me, it's my partner, and he has a very bad face pain. He explains it as electric shocks. It starts off as like a ding to your face, and then it increases and causes pain out through your forehead and your jaw and your cheek. And it's just unbearable pain. Actually, it's been also known as the suicide disease because people who have it can't get any relief from it. So they oftentimes go to the hospital to have it checked. And more than once that they've discovered that people coming there have had their head injuries caused by themselves because they've been trying to get rid of the pain.
And just like that, my friend just texted me. So obviously listening to us here this morning. So he's taken, let me read this. He's taken an anticonvulsant medication. And I don't know what that is or what are examples of that, but that's what he says. They're anticonvulsant medication, and there's a possibility in the future he might have a surgery.
Yes, we've heard a little bit about the surgery. There's a doctor in Paradise who's apparently suffered from it himself, and the reason why he studied it and is working now and practicing it.
So if anyone else chimes in, I'll share the information on the show. But I suppose for pharmaceutical treatment is something that's called an anticonvulsant, which I don't know much about, to be honest with you. And there's probably multiple examples of that. But between that and his mention of potential surgery into the future, that's as much as I know about it.
Yes. Okay, then. Well, that's very helpful. And if anybody else has anything, it would be greatly appreciated to hear what it was.
Happy to pass it along. You're welcome, Lynn. Good luck.
And have a great one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, and I know this guy pretty well. And, like, if the last time I saw him experience one, we were simply sitting down playing a game of 120s. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, grabbed his face, and you could see the pain in his eyes. So apparently it could be pretty severe. Let's go to line number 3. Sarah, you're on the air.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. How about you?
Good. I'm just calling. We actually spoke before about speed dating.
Yep.
And I was just spreading the word about it. The last time I spoke to you, I did get a few more people buy tickets. So I wanted to spread the word about that again. We have a speed dating event coming up Monday night at the Tap House in Torbay. And the age range for this one is 55 to 65, so you can be within that age group or a couple years outside of it. And you can buy tickets on eventbrite.ca.
Tell us a bit about how the last one went, like how many people showed up and if there's any so-called success stories or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, so I actually had one last night that was for 45 to 55. That was 10 men, 10 women. So finally for the older age groups, we are starting to get equal numbers. It's kind of the 55 plus now that I'm having trouble with. But everything below that, I have equal numbers. Most of the events that are below 40, I usually have 30 people participate. So to have 20 people last night was great. There was 12 people who had a match out of 20 people.
That sounds like a pretty good ratio.
Yeah, most events are about 50%. So half the people going will get at least one match. Some people get multiple.
How long have you been doing this, Sarah?
Since February.
Any blossoming love stories come from the event yet?
I have had a few, some mutual friends who have met other friends and gone on dates and stuff. So I do know that there have been matches that have led to relationships. I'm not sure how long they have lasted for. I always tell people to give me an update because I'd love to know. But I also had another event where two people didn't match, but they messaged me about the other. And so I was able to put them in contact after. So even things like that are really sweet to see.
Absolutely. And I think we had this little conversation last time as well, is it might not feel like it's for everybody. Not everybody wants to date in that type of speed dating scene. What's remarkable to me is that, and I'm glad I'm not in the dating community any longer, is, it's swiping left to right as opposed to the old-fashioned meet someone face-to-face and see whether or not you like them, which I know eventually can happen in the swipe world. But what's your message to folks who might be hesitant to go to this type of event?
Yeah, I think some people have the notion that it's like desperate people or something like that. But for the most part, it's actually very social people. They just might not have large friend circles, or they might not have mutual friends to put them in touch, or they might hate the apps, which a lot of us do. So it's just a comfortable environment. There's mood lighting. It's very comfortable. We have question cards you can use to start a conversation. So all you really have to do is buy a ticket and show up, and then I guide you through the rest of it. So it's really no pressure. And you don't have to say yes to the people there at the event. You fill out a form, which no one knows who you say yes or no to. And if two people say yes to each other, then I put you in contact the next day.
Terrific. How long do people have to meet each other? Are we talking like 5 minutes and a bell goes off, or what is it?
Yeah, it's only 5 minutes per person, and then you have about a minute to switch tables.
And again, I don't know if this is a fair question, but how can people get past the judge a book by its cover kind of approach? Because 5 minutes is a pretty compressed time frame to know whether or not you actually have a match or are interested in moving forward. Sometimes it might just boil down to how someone looks.
Yeah, I think on the apps, like, you can't really get a vibe for someone's personality. You can kind of only go from a picture, and then when you meet them in person, they might not be super friendly, or they might not, be what they say they are online. So you can kind of get a better vibe for someone's personality, even if it is 5 minutes. You can kind of see if they're super talkative or awkward or even impolite or whatnot. So it is a bit more than you can get from online.
Awkward can be cute. And of course, in person, you know exactly what the person looks like versus online when that photo is likely not them at all or them at their very best moment through a variety of filters.
Yeah, and that happens with all age groups. That's some of the feedback I get. Like, all age groups are kind of unsure about those things and kind of have the same negative experiences where you might just have small talk with someone and never actually meet them, or they may just ghost you or whatnot. So at least in person, it's just a quick 5-minute thing. You don't have to spend any more time with them, but you do get more of a vibe for who someone is.
I appreciate your time this morning, Sarah. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I'll just say it again. It
details,
is
yes.
If you search on Eventbrite.com, if you search Speed Dating NL or even Speed Dating St. John's, you should find all upcoming events. And if you search Speed Dating NL on Facebook and Instagram, you'll also find it. So the event coming up Monday is at the Post Tap House. You do have to buy tickets online, or you can just message one of the social media pages. We can do like e-transfers or whatnot if you aren't able to buy online. And it's at 7 o'clock on Monday night for ages 55 to 65.
Sounds great. Good luck with it.
Okay, thanks so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. A bit of speed dating. Yeah. How we doing today? We got a couple to get us home. Let's see here. Last segment of the show, it's for you. If you're in and around town, it's 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. We're taking a break, and then we're coming back. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 1. Verna, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. It's me again from Bell Island.
Yep.
An ex-member of the Bell Island Ferry User Committee that I was on for 5+ years, dealing with the transportation infrastructure management. As we stand right now, we have 2 boats here. I wouldn't say they're operating. We have 2 boats. The Beaumont is, if you check out 511, they have a ongoing post saying they have bow thruster issues, and under the Canada transport regulations. They could shut down at any time. Well, yesterday they shut down at 1:30. There was nothing really going on at that time, weather-wise, wind-wise, but they did. And they said when they felt that it was appropriate time, they would, at that time, maybe start up the boat, which they never did. This has been going on 5+ weeks. We've also got the wharf over here being worked on. They got the bumpers, like where they have the tires on it so that the boats don't hit the concrete when they're coming in. That's going on here. We're having the tarring, the paving of the roads going on. And we do have weather conditions. I reached out to the department for answers in regards to what's going on with the Flanders. Rumors have it has no bottom end in it. It's still in dry dock, or I should say it's not on the dry dock. It's actually still in the water. That is over 2 months now. So we got 1, bow thruster issues. We've got 2 that's still in dry dock. As far as I know, nothing done with it. 3, I understand that the new dock, I think that's what it's called, that's in the harbor there. There's the shipping where they go and they do the refits and that. I understand that will be shutting down for 2 to 4 years for infrastructure restructuring. I don't know if it's somebody else is taking it over, but where are our boats going to go for refit? January, the Legionnaire is supposed to go for the thruster issues. Mr. Petton, who is the PC, he was appointed for the Minister of Transportation. He feels that the management that is in there is sufficient. We've been fighting for answers for them for 10+ years, and we never got it. We don't have no communication, we don't have no PR from them, and we have no HR, and neither do the workers. We are on a string. That's what we're holding on by, a string. And they're going to wait and assess this themselves when they don't want to listen to the people. They had to have seen the media. And the first thing that Tony said with his election was to be transparent, accountable, open, honest, and listen to the people. Well, it's not happening, Patty.
So nothing's changed?
No, nothing. I've sent the email off, asked all these questions. They started with paving on the island. And they had another thing is the Beaumont, if it does start up, it doesn't start up till 11 o'clock every day. And lately, they've been starting the boat up from Portugal Cove at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. People are dependent on that, Patty, to get to work. It's too late when they get over to the island at 7:30, when the people start work at 8 o'clock.
Does it ever make you want to move?
Patty, if I could afford to, I would have to. But I can't afford to, so what do I do? And what do most of the people that live on the island do? The same thing. And it's not only for work, it's for your medical attention. I went the other morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, I had a procedure. I said, okay, I'll rush back. I got in the Cove, Legionnaires down. Had to go up to Long Pond because I couldn't stay in Portugal Cove because of the docking issues. They had to have it out of the way of the Beaumont. So it's ongoing, and there's no answers. There's no update. There's no communication. There's nothing to the people, and it's shut up and put up from previous, and now we've got a new party in, which I thought, okay, they're going to fight. I know we are liberals. We're on the opposition. But the ferry service is for a provincial service. And I'd like to say, in regards to what is going on, it shouldn't be going on. And they say, oh, well, we have to keep the maintenance on Saturdays and Sundays to keep these boats operational. They're not operating. So I guess this management they have in regards to the maintenance and that is not working. There's people that are that are qualified, that can run that department correctly. And my opinion is change the management to better our ferry service, because the management they have there the bureaucrats, the upper management are not doing their job, but they're still getting paid and getting away with it and answering to nobody. I don't know if you reached out to see if you could get answers the last time I talked to you or not, but what do we do next?
It's a good question, and I have reached out like I do all the time on a variety of issues that people call about. Vern, I'm going to sneak on one more call, but I appreciate your time and concern.
Thank you, Patty. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Final word goes to line number 2. Otto, you're on the air.
How's Paddy?
That's kind. How about you?
Thanks for taking me call, buddy.
No problem.
Long time, no many moons ago. Talk to you.
Welcome back to the show. What do you want to talk about this morning, Otto?
The foot fishery. In July, Mrs. Thompson announced that she was going to make an announcement in September on the foot fishery. See what the people wanted. Haven't heard from her yet.
No, my understanding is that they're going to hold whatever they're calling consultations in the spring. Now, I don't know what that means and what it's going to look like, but that's what I've been told anyway.
Unreal. She said she was going to make an announcement in September, right? This is November, right, boy?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything since she was talking about it. And I didn't hear anything from the Prime Minister. She was talking about DFO and maybe restructuring, and Minister Thompson made brief comments about the food fishery, but I don't know much more about it at this point, Otto.
Yeah, about the MOU about Church of Falls, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I worked at the old Church of Falls, right? I don't like that deal, 50 years, eh? Now, Quebec is taking the risk, right? They built the Gaulon, right? They got to get something out of it. Because Newfoundland can't develop themselves. Danny Winters tried to do it with Montserrat Falls. He put us in the old $15 billion. Now, the first Church of Falls was finished on schedule, over schedule. You finished at a time, eh?
It's been a pretty good source of profit for Quebec, that's for sure. I think it's somewhere like they're in and around $29 billion since, and we're around $2 billion since. So, been pretty lopsided state of affairs, that's for sure.
Yeah, but they blamed it on Joey Small. It wasn't Joey Small. Because if you ever read the book on Brinkle, it will tell you that Joey Small was blackmailed. That they didn't want the power to go through New England, right, through Quebec. He was blackmailed. He was 20 years getting Church of Falls developed.
Yeah, it's a long, tangly story, that's for sure. Otto, because of the time on the clock, we have.
Yeah, I know.
We have to leave it there.
A lot of people run down Joey's mother, but I got a book there about Joey Road, eh? Man, he started Cummington. He started the shipyard in Marystown. He started Church of Falls.
Otto,
yeah, all right then.
I got to hop in, buddy. You have a nice weekend.
Back Monday.
Sounds good. All right, buddy. All the best. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands. Dial Carol tomorrow. We're at the Avalon Mall from 1 to 6, and we will indeed pick up this conversation again on Monday morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy weekend. Talk Monday. Bye-bye.